"You're not really married," a quiet voice suddenly shouted across the fancy dining room. It sounded sharp, like a knife cutting through the air, and everyone instantly stopped talking. The sound of forks hitting plates, soft chatter, and the clinking of glasses disappeared like it had never been there. At the head of the long, polished dining table stood my mother-in-law, Sarah Valence. She held a glass of red wine and had a big, proud smile on her face. "The wedding was fake," she announced. "That priest was just an actor I hired. You've been living a lie for the past year." My husband, Jack, turned pale. His face drained of color like someone had sucked it away. Around the table, his brothers, sisters, and their husbands and wives froze in shock, forks hanging in midair. The only sound left in the room was the quiet, steady tick of the big old grandfather clock in the corner. Each tick felt louder than normal, counting down every second of this dramatic moment. My name is Sarila Hartwell, and I'm 32 years old. I never imagined that my marriage would be called fake during Sunday dinner. But then again, I never expected Sarah Valence to be so cruel, sneaky, and controlling. "Mom, what are you talking about?" Jack asked, his voice shaking. He reached for my hand under the table. I gave his hand a gentle squeeze and tried to keep my face calm. Staying calm was important. If I got upset or angry, Sarah would think she had won. Sarah's smile grew wider as she carefully set down her wine glass. "Oh, darling," she said, turning to Jack. "I couldn't let you marry her. A simple town event planner with no important family connections. She's so far beneath us." Her eyes glittered with a mean light. "I had to protect the family name. I couldn't let you marry someone like her." The room erupted in chaos. "Jack's sister is Miria," gasped loudly. His brother, Thorian, stood up, clearly ready to argue. His father, Alaric, just stared at his whiskey glass as if it could answer all his questions. But I stayed calm. I didn't shout, I didn't cry, and I didn't get angry. That seemed to frustrate Sarah even more. She had expected me to react, to be scared or upset. But I wasn't going to give her that satisfaction. "Nothing to say, Sarila? No tears, no drama?" Sarah asked, her voice full of challenge. I slowly reached for my purse that hung on the back of my chair. "Actually, Sarah, I do have something to say," I told her. "Or rather something to show you." I pulled out my phone slowly, deliberately, so that everyone could see me do it. After that strange conversation we had last week about the wedding papers, I decided to do a little investigating on my own. "Do you remember that conversation?" Sarah's confident smirk wavered. "What conversation?" she asked, her voice a little nervous. "The one you had with your friend Callista at the country club," I said calmly. "The one where you bragged about finding the perfect actor to play a priest, and how you were going to make sure the marriage wasn't legally binding. I heard everything, and I found out all the details. You really should be more careful about where you have secret conversations. The ladies' bathroom has surprisingly good sound." Sarah's face went from confident and smug to shocked in just a few seconds. "You were there?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Oh no, I wasn't," I replied. "But my friend Lysandra was. She is the new club manager. She was in the bathroom stall when you came in. She heard everything." I held up my phone so that everyone could see. I pressed play. Sarah's voice came through the speakers, clear and loud, as if she was standing right there. She had said, "That little gold digger won't know what hit her. I've arranged everything. The priest will be an actor. The marriage won't be legal. And when the time is right, I'll reveal everything. Jack will have no choice but to leave her." I paused the recording and looked around the table. Every single person was staring at her in shock. She grabbed the edge of the table, knuckles white, and tried to hold her composure. "But that's not all," I said, my voice calm but strong. "I did some more checking. Would you like to know what I found?" Sarah's eyes widened. "You're bluffing," she said. "No," I replied. "The real priest, Father Octavian Hartwell, the one you thought was out of the country during our wedding, he wasn't out of the country. In fact, he was exactly where he was supposed to be, performing our ceremony. Your actor never showed up because the real priest arrived first. The marriage license is completely legal. Filed with the county clerk's office the very next day." I reached into my purse and pulled out a thick folder. I slid it slowly across the table toward Jack. "Here are copies of all the documents. You can check for yourself if you want." The room went completely silent. Jack picked up the folder with trembling hands. His father, Alaric, finally looked up from his whiskey glass. His siblings stared at Sarah in shock. "But how?" Sarah stammered, unable to believe it. "Did you really think I wouldn't do my homework?" I asked, keeping my voice calm. I'm an event planner, Seraphira. I triple-check everything. When Father Hartwell called to confirm the ceremony, he mentioned that someone tried to cancel him and hire a replacement. That's when I knew something was wrong. I just had to figure out who was behind it and why. Jack stood up suddenly. His chair scraped across the hardwood floor. Mom, how could you do this to me? To us, he demanded. Seraphira's carefully maintained composure finally cracked. Jack, darling, I was trying to protect you. She's not one of us. She doesn't understand our world. No, Mom, Jack said firmly. You don't understand. Sarila isn't just my wife. She's the best thing that's ever happened to me. And now everyone knows what kind of person you really are. I reached for his hand again, and he gripped it tightly. We had planned for this moment, but it was still painful to see the impact on him. Family had always meant everything to Jack, and seeing his mother's true colors was devastating. Seraphira sank into her chair, completely defeated. Alaric, say something, she pleaded with her husband. Alaric finally looked at her. I think you've said quite enough, Seraphira. Sarila, Jack, I believe we all owe you an apology. The grandfather clock continued its slow ticking. Dinner was over, but this was just the beginning of a new family dynamic. The aftermath of that Sunday dinner spread through Boston's high society like wildfire. Seraphira's carefully built image as the perfect matriarch crumbled within days. It wasn't just about her failed plan to cancel my marriage. It was about all the little manipulations she had done over the years that this incident had revealed. I sat in my office at Matthew's events, reviewing contracts for a charity gala when Ismiria, Jack's sister, knocked on my door. She looked different now. Less polished, more genuine, like someone finally letting go of pretending. Sarila, do you have a minute? She asked, hovering nervously in the doorway. I gestured to the chair across from my desk. Ismiria sat down, holding a stack of papers. Over the last 2 weeks, she had become an unexpected ally, telling me about Seraphira's past schemes that even Jack didn't know about. Mom's trying to sell the summer house, Ismiria said. The one that's been in the family for generations. She says she needs money for a fresh start, but I found these in Dad's study. She handed me the papers. I looked through them quickly. They were receipts for massive gambling debts, all in Seraphira's name. How long has this been going on? I asked. Years, Ismiria said quietly. She's been borrowing against family property, taking loans from Dad's business associates. That's why she was so desperate to keep you out of the family. She was afraid you'd find out about her financial schemes. The irony wasn't lost on me. Seraphira had called me a gold digger while secretly draining the family's money for years. I thought about Jack. He was already hurting from everything he had just learned about his mother. This news would crush him even more. Does Dad know? I asked, already guessing the answer. Ismiria shook her head. He's been so focused on the company, he just signed whatever she put in front of him. But now, she trailed off looking worried. Now what? I asked. She's threatening to expose some of Dad's old business dealings if he doesn't give her what she wants, Ismiria said. She's cornered Sarila. And she's desperate. I leaned back in my chair, thinking. Seraphira's desperation made her dangerous, but it also made her predictable. What exactly does she want? I asked. $2 million, Ismiria said. And a public statement from the family supporting her version of events, saying the whole wedding scandal was a misunderstanding and that she was acting in the family's best interests. I couldn't help but laugh quietly. She really doesn't give up, does she? No, Ismiria agreed. But this time we have something she doesn't know about. She pulled out one more document. A letter from Seraphira to her friend Callista, written right before my wedding. In it, Seraphira explained not only her plan to fake the ceremony, but also her years of financial manipulation and how she hid money from the family. Where did you get this? I asked, scanning through the letter. Callista sent it to me, Ismiria said. She didn't like being blamed for Seraphira's schemes, so she gave it to me. Just then my phone buzzed. Jack had sent a message. Mom's called an emergency family meeting for tonight. She says she has an announcement. I looked at Ismiria and smiled. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. I showed the message to Ismiria, and she fixed the grammar. She gave a little smile, but I could tell she was worried. She was going to try to control the story again. But I shook my head and said firmly, not this time. I knew it was time to show everyone the real Seraphira Valence, the truth about who she really was. That evening, we all gathered in the Valence family library. The library was big and filled with tall shelves that were stacked with old books. The walls were a dark wood color, and there was a big, warm fireplace at the center. Sapphira stood next to the fireplace, looking very fancy in her expensive suit. Her hair was perfectly done, standing up in a tall, neat style, like she had spent hours making it look just right. She looked proud and serious, like she was ready to give a performance. Alaric, Jack's father, sat in his usual big leather chair. He had a strong face and a serious look, but I noticed a small smile playing at the corners of his mouth as he watched everyone arrive. Jack, Ismeria, Thorian, and their husbands and wives slowly found their places around the room. Some of them sat, some of them stood, and all of us were trying to look calm, even though our hearts were beating fast. I held the folder with Callista's letter tightly in my hand. My fingers felt a little cold as I gripped it. I chose to stand, I said, my voice clear and strong. I asked you all to come here because I think it's time to fix this problem once and for all. My eyes scanned the room to see everyone's reactions. I'm willing to forgive what happened if we can make a fair plan. But we need honesty. We need the truth. Jack tensed next to me. I could feel it through his arm as he held my hand. I squeezed his hand back, silently asking him to wait, to trust me. Sapphira started talking. She explained what she wanted, her voice smooth and confident. Money. A public statement. Her old social position was restored. She seemed so focused on her own demands that she didn't notice Ismeria slipping out her phone to record, or Thorian moving closer to the door to be ready. She didn't notice anything outside her little bubble of control. When she finished, I stepped forward. That's a very generous offer, Sapphira, I said, keeping my voice calm but strong. She blinked and looked surprised. This doesn't concern you, she said sharply. I shook my head. Actually, I said, it concerns all of us. Especially because you're trying to trick the family into covering up your gambling debts. Her face went pale, like someone had turned the lights off suddenly. I don't know what you're talking about, she said, trying to sound confident. But her voice was shaky. I opened the folder and slowly began to read Callista's letter out loud. Every word was true, every detail clear. I saw her strong, confident mask begin to crumble as I read. Her hands gripped the mantelpiece of the fireplace. Her knees shook slightly. By the time I finished, she looked completely lost. How dare you, she whispered, her voice trembling. Those are private matters. Private matters? Alaric's voice boomed from his chair. You've been taking from our family for years, and you call this private? His eyes were sharp, filled with anger. Sapphira spun around to face him. Alaric, I can explain. Save it, he said, cutting her off with one strong word. Cirilla, Ismeria, thank you for showing this. I think it's time to make real changes in this family. For the next few minutes, chaos filled the room. Sapphira tried to threaten us. She pleaded. She tried to make the siblings fight each other. She even pointed fingers and tried to twist words around to make herself look innocent. But nobody was listening anymore. We had seen the truth. We knew what she had done. Finally, security came in and escorted her out of the house. I watched her go, her fancy shoes clicking on the floor. I couldn't help but think about how differently things might have turned out if she had just accepted me as part of the family. Instead, her trying to get rid of me had led to her own downfall. Jack wrapped his arm around my waist as we watched her car drive down the driveway. I'm so sorry, he whispered softly, for everything she put you through. I looked at him, seeing the mix of pain and relief in his eyes. Don't be, I said. She thought she could break us apart, but she only made us stronger. Behind us, the Valence family had already started to heal. They were talking quietly, making plans to repair the damage Sapphira had caused. It made me realize something important. Sometimes you have to lose someone who is toxic to truly become a family. 6 months later, I stood in the ballroom of the Valence summer house. The house that Sapphira had tried to sell to pay her gambling debts was now completely transformed. The grand rooms were filled with flowers, music, and laughter. Tonight was special. We were having a vow renewal ceremony for Jack and me. This was our way to celebrate our marriage again, in our own way, without anyone else trying to control the story. It was a little funny that we were celebrating in the very house Sapphira had wanted to sell. I adjusted the flowers again, an old habit of mine from when I used to plan events. I wanted everything to look just right. Ismeria came over, holding a magazine in her hands. Have you seen this? She asked, showing me the society pages. There was a photograph of Sapphira at a resort in Palm Beach. She looked very different from how she did in Boston. Her fancy suit and perfect hair were gone, and she looked a little tired. The headline said, "Disgraced Boston socialite now works as resort activities director." I couldn't help but smile. She always loved organizing other people's lives. Dad's lawyers found most of the money, Ismiria said, putting the magazine down. She had it spread across different accounts, but they're slowly getting it back. I don't think she'll ever be welcomed back into Boston society. The sound of laughter came from the garden doors. Jack was talking and joking with his father, Alaric. Since Seraphira had left, Alaric had changed a lot. He wasn't so strict and serious all the time. He had stepped back from running the company every day and was spending more time with his children. Today, he looked relaxed in a light summer suit. His face was warm, with a real smile that made his eyes sparkle. "Cirilla," he called, walking over to me. "Everything looks perfect, but you shouldn't be working at your own celebration." I smiled at him. "Once an event planner, always an event planner," I said, straightening a little flower in its vase. "But this is different. This is family." The word family feels very special now. Not the strict, controlling kind Seraphira had enforced, but a warm, happy kind where everyone could be themselves. Just then, Thorian ran into the room, waving an envelope in the air. "You'll never believe what Mom just tried," he said. We gathered around as he opened it. Seraphira wanted to be invited to the party, saying it was her right as the family matriarch. We all laughed. Her demands used to make everyone nervous and tense, but now it was funny. Should we tell her the party was last week? Ismiria suggested with a cheeky grin. Or that we moved to Tibet, Jack added, laughing. Or, I said, taking the letter from Thorian and dropping it in the trash. We could enjoy our evening without thinking about her at all. The ceremony itself was wonderful. It was happy, real, and filled with people who truly cared about us. Father Hartwell, the real one this time, did the ceremony again. He even made a little joke at the beginning by checking everyone's credentials first, which made everyone laugh. During the reception, Alaric raised his glass to make a toast. Everyone got quiet. He looked more emotional than I had ever seen him before. "A year ago," he began, "I thought I knew what family meant. I thought it was about appearances, protecting our name, and staying in our own circle. I was wrong." He turned to Jack and me. "Cirilla, when you first joined our family, I let Seraphira convince me you weren't like us. But you showed us what real family is, honesty, courage, and love that never ends. You helped heal this family. You helped all of us learn what it really means to love each other." Tears came to my eyes as Alaric raised his glass higher. "To Cirilla and Jack, thank you for showing us a better way to be a family." Later, as Jack and I danced slowly to soft music, he whispered, "Any regrets about how things turned out with Mom?" I thought about Seraphira, about her plans, her schemes, and how she tried to ruin our family. Instead, she had freed the family from her control. "None," I said honestly. "She tried to prove I didn't belong, but she only showed that she never understood what family really means." Jack pulled me closer. "She called me yesterday," he whispered. "She wanted to know if I'd let her move back to Boston." I nodded. I had told him I said no. She had lost the right to control our lives the day she tried to ruin our marriage. She did not like that answer. I looked around the room. Ismiria was teaching her kids a silly dance. Thorian and his husband were planning their adoption. Alaric was smiling and relaxing. We were doing well without Seraphira's control. The summer house, once a symbol of Seraphira's love for money and power, had become something completely different. It was now a place where the family could be real, where love didn't come with rules, where everyone could be themselves and be happy. As the evening wound down, I stepped out onto the terrace for a quiet moment. The garden lights twinkled like stars, and the soft sound of waves from the nearby beach created a perfect backdrop for reflection. Seraphira had tried to prove I didn't deserve this life, this family. Instead, she had proven that sometimes the people who try hardest to control their family understand it the least. I smiled, thinking about the irony. In trying to break us apart, she had made us stronger. In trying to stay in control, she had lost everything. And for the first time, I truly felt that we were a family, not because of appearances, rules, or money, but because we had each other, and we chose love.